here's a story I heard earlier today. We had a woman who was going to jump off the Monroe Street Bridge, literally hanging over the bridge. A civilian holding on to that person. The officer arrives. The person who's trying to jump says to the officer, "Could you just let me jump?" The officer grabs the person and forcefully pulls them over the rail and saves their life. The civilian who was holding on to them originally files a complaint and says the officer used too much force. The ombudsman was involved in that investigation. But think about it. I mean, I think we have to have a conversation about this police department. You know, it was a couple months ago that an individual doused himself with gasoline, doused everybody in the apartment with gasoline, doused the whole apartment with gasoline, and met our officers at the door with a cigarette lighter. All he had to do was flick that. We talked him out of that situation. This week alone, we received 6 different acknowledgments from the community about excellent police work. This police department has changed radically in the past 12 months. We are finally delivering to this community what this community has always wanted, an outstanding police department. And look at what you have. You have the mayor of the city, you have the president of the guild, and you have the police chief of this department saying, you want more oversight? No problem. You want a commission? No problem. You want to expand the ability of this commission to opine on what the police department does? Absolutely. You have a police department that had a use of force commission make 26 recommendations, and we've implemented every single one of them. You have the people's representative, the ombudsman, make recommendation after recommendation after recommendation, and we've implemented every single one of them. The mayor, when he took office, had a list of things that he wanted done to reform the police department. We've implemented every one of them. The council had a list. We've implemented every one of them. I came into office, and one of the first things I did is I said to the Department of Justice, come in, please, and take a look at our police department, because we want to be the best police department in the country. We didn't wait for a judge to order it. We invited them in to our shop. We're having a series of public discussions, and have been for several weeks and months now, about this ordinance. This isn't something that we all got up this morning. The Center for Justice, Rick Eichstadt, you've seen him at previous press conferences, has sat at the same table with members of the council, with the guild, with the police department, with city legal, and talked about what needs to be in this ordinance and what can we put in an ordinance that is still consistent with the law. So I think you have a police department here that I have to say is the chief of police, and I'm very proud to say this, that every day can demonstrate to this community that we get up to protect them. Crime right now in the city of Spokane is up only 3%. This is the first time in 4 or 5 years that we haven't had double-digit crime increases. We have virtually an 8% reduction in violent crime. And when we started this summer, we only had 250 police officers that were available to serve a community of 210,000 residents spread over 75 square miles. And despite that, we reduced crime to this level. And I predict by the end of the year, we're going to be pretty close to zero in terms of an increase, if not at zero, an increase. At the same time that every single police officer in the Spokane Police Department has or will, by the end of the first quarter of next year, receive 40 hours of crisis intervention training. There are very few other police departments of any size in this country that can boast for that. In addition, they're receiving de-escalation training. In addition to that, we've standardized our weapons. In addition to that, the Guild and the police officers have said, you want us to wear body cameras? We'll wear body cameras. Think about it. Would you want to walk around every day, all day, for 10 hours and 40 minutes of your life with a body camera recording every single interaction that you have with everybody you come in contact with? Our police officers said, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. If that's what the community wants, we're going to do it. So I think it's time that the community and all of us recognize we have a really good police department that every single day put their life on their line to serve this community and are doing so extremely successfully. When is the last time in this community we've been able to talk about an 8% reduction in violent crime? Do you know that right now we have no unsolved homicides? As fast as something happens, we stop it. And there's a whole host of things that we've stopped that have never occurred. When you look at the complaints, and I would urge you, look at the Ombudsman's report. Demeanor, inadequate response, and talk to the Ombudsman. He'll tell you, inadequate response is because we just can't handle the call volume right now. We can't get to every call. So we get it that people are upset. They call the police and 2 hours later we're finally able to get there because we're finally able to free somebody up. Those are the bulk of the complaints. And remember, in 5 years of this ombudsman being the ombudsman, he has never once not certified an investigation. He has the ability right now, without this ordinance, to go to the mayor and say, hey, I have to throw the you-know-what card because I'm not happy with this investigation. He's never done that once. Every time in 5 years he's come to the police chief and said, not just this police chief, but two before me, I want to expand this investigation. The police chief has always said yes. And he's always certified the investigation. So there's nothing going on behind the scenes. The people's representative, the ombudsman, sits in every single interview. And now again, we as the police department, because we want to bring the very best service we possibly can to this community, are saying, you want an independent commission? Absolutely. We'll abide by the findings of that commission. We'll be completely transparent. You want to come on a ride along with our department? Come. We're bringing in the Department of Justice. They report to nobody to come in and look at us and make recommendations. So I'm trying to figure out what more we need to do. I think we need to take a pause here and remember what happened in public safety after 9/11 when we applauded our public safety people, the police officers, the firefighters, and EMTs. Well, I think we need to applaud the men and women that work for this city a little bit more often, because that bridge story, that gasoline story, I could spend the rest of the week with you telling story after story after story how these men and women deliver the finest level of service to the community. And remember, this isn't my first rodeo. I worked in New York City, the largest police department in the United States, one of the largest in the world. I worked in Indianapolis. I worked in White Plains. I've consulted with police departments all over the country. This community is very lucky. They're served by tremendous men and women that are completely open to engaging the community, involving the community, and giving the community complete and total access to what we do.